anybody that comes up to me, it's a blessing and a curse for people to come up to you and be like, hey, everybody in my family's dead. Like, thanks for your music. And it's like, like every day, that happens 100 times a day. If I go to the store, I might see somebody in the store and they're like, oh my God, your song. Everybody in my family's addicted to drugs. I know what it's like. And so to be that, person that they can see them in me, it's amazing because I see myself in them. And it's like, it's a great exchange.
Well, Ave, welcome to From Vision to Creation. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I've been really looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you, dude.
Well, I kind of want to get started at the beginning. So can you tell us a bit about where you grew up and how your environment influenced your music?
Yeah, dude. I grew up in Missouri. I grew up in like small town Missouri. So the town that I grew up in had like 900 people, like in the full town. There's no stoplights or anything like that. Everybody knows everybody. Like my best friends, their parents are like my parents, vice versa. Um, I grew up in a house with 6 kids and 8 people, and then all of us had like homies that also lived there. So I grew up in a house with like a total of like 12 to 14 people sometimes, and it was a 4 bedroom house. So that environment. All my older brothers played guitar. They all had bands. They were like kind of just like punk rockers. I think they influenced me heavily when I was a kid at first. Like that's what made me really fall in love with music, was having like this background of like being in this small house with a bunch of teenagers that like love music and making music, and yeah, that's like kind of what originally made me fall in love with music. And I think that coming from like a town of like 1,000 people was is kind of what kind of like I'm very like I've always felt like I have something to prove to people, and I think that had a lot to do with it.
And I read that you started writing poetry at 8 years old. What drew you to writing at such a young age?
Honestly, bro, my older brother, like my mom, I remember my mom telling me I was probably 6 years old, 7 years old when she told me this. She was like, she heard me listening to, or she saw me listening to a song and it like made me cry, and I was a kid, and she was like, lyrics make you. She's like, a lot of kids don't recognize lyrics like you do. She's like, lyrics are supposed to make you feel stuff. She's like, it's cool that they make you feel stuff, and I thought about that all the time. And as soon as I started like feeling stuff, as soon as I started like, liking girls and like stuff like that, and like feeling like left out or whatever, like as soon as I started having like more like kid emotions at like 8, 10 years old, it's kind of whenever I started writing like poetry. I would write like little short stories too, but like poetry, obviously, like directly, like lyrics come right after that. If you're writing like poetry, you might as well be writing lyrics. So I guess that was like my first experience doing that. But I also wrote like little short stories and stuff. I just love writing, and I love how writing can like make you feel shit. And I think I just kind of, that's kind of when I started. It was like I was 8 years old. I wrote my first poem. Um, I wrote it for like a girl in my like class or whatever, like type situation. And yeah, man, I never stopped writing really after that.
And when you were writing these poems and short stories, did it occur to you right then and there that you may turn them into music later? Or did you have that realization kind of later on in life?
So like if we're talking about like 8 years old, like 7, 8 years old, like whenever I'm a small kid, I wanted my like I wanted to be a writer. So I remember telling my neighbor I wanted to write stories, but I didn't really like my brothers were in bands and stuff like that, and it was kind of like cool to me, but I didn't really, I wasn't totally at 8 years old, I wasn't totally hip on like the rock star thing. So not then and there, I wasn't like, yo, I'm gonna start writing songs from here. I wanted to write like short stories and stuff like Dr. Seuss, but I think like at 10 years old, or like 9, 10, 11 years old, whenever I kind of realized, like started like going through changes and kind of like idolizing my brothers more, and turning on the TV, and watching American Idol, and watching just in general, like that's whenever I was like, yeah, I think this is gonna turn into like something like that. That's whenever I really fell in love with like the creative side of music.
And I watched an interview where you were talking about how you uploaded hundreds of songs to SoundCloud.
Yeah.
I want to rewind a little bit back to the first one. Were you nervous to upload your first song on SoundCloud?
Nervous? I don't think nervous. No, nervous is not the word. I was like super stoked. I was like, I couldn't wait. I remember like writing that song. Remember whenever we came up with the idea that we're gonna go to the studio, it was just like I was just super stoked. And I didn't wait. It was like as soon as I got home from the studio that day, I uploaded it to SoundCloud. You could do that on SoundCloud. You could just go and you could just upload in seconds. So I was like, boom, upload right when I got home. I was excited.
And I feel like a lot of people, especially in today's day and age, feel like I'm going to start uploading my stuff on the internet. I'm going to go viral in a day, right? I mean, like overnight, it's going to happen for me. But I know that oftentimes that's not the case. Sometimes it takes some time. How long after uploading your first song on SoundCloud did you start to see real traction in your music career?
Yeah, that was like, I mean, I uploaded my first song in like 2015, 2014. So that was like right before, like stuff was viral, like, but like when back then, when you thought of viral, you thought of like Soldier Boy on YouTube and like stuff like that. So it wasn't quite like I think around like 2015, 2016, a couple years later is kind of whenever the idea started that like you would see like artists just blow up overnight, or you would like Lil Yachty release a song on SoundCloud in I think 2015 or 2016, and he like went super viral. So I didn't go into it thinking like, yo, I'm gonna release this and go viral. I went into it thinking like, yo, I'm starting to put the foundation down to like build a house on, which is cool. But I think like later on that thought crept in, a couple years in, whenever I'm 19, 20 years old, and I'm like, yo, I've been doing this for a minute and nobody's watching. I had that idea of like, what could I do to go viral? Like, oh, I need to just go viral. Oh, if I could just go viral overnight, that kind of put pressure on me. But right away, I didn't really grow up in like an era where you just like blow up. Kids now, like my nephew's 10, or my nephew's 12 years old, about to be 13 actually. And he's like growing up in that era, where he needs instant gratification. Like if he were to post a song and it didn't go viral, it might like mess him up, he might get like upset. But for me, I didn't grow up in that. So I was like, whenever I very first started making music, I was just ready to like go to war with it.
So it took a few years from the first one until you started seeing real traction, maybe 3, 4 years.
Oh, dude, no. I didn't start seeing real traction until like 2 years ago. Like I probably posted 200 songs and been doing it for 10 years, like before I even had 10,000 views. I actually remember I snuck 10,000 views in one time because when Kendrick Lamar came out with that Be Humble song, I made a Be Humble remix, and I just titled it Kendrick Lamar dash Be Humble, and then in quotations at the end remix. And so whenever you looked it up on SoundCloud, like some people would accidentally listen to mine, and they would just be back. I was like, ew, like what the hell? Like I didn't know what I was clicking on. And but so I snuck my first 10,000 views in like then. But other than that, and that song only got like 10,000, maybe 15,000. Other than that though, like I didn't see 10,000 views on a song until like I was 10 years deep.
That's really cool. And I ask because I think that it's important for people to hear this because if you're passionate about something, don't get so caught up on going viral right away or anything like that. Stay true to your craft, put it out there, and then the follows, the listens, they come later.
Yeah. I think that's true. I also think that there's got to be a sense of urgency though. Like if somebody's listening, and they hear that message, they also got to know that like you got to have that thought, or you got to have that idea, or that goal to like go viral. Like you got to know that okay, if you did like post one video, you got to post 10 more and 15 more and 20 more, and like that's kind of laying the foundation. But like eventually your goal is that, and but also the other thing is you gotta know like, do you love this stuff? If you're like painting buildings and you hate painting buildings, and then you paint 200,000, buildings, and everybody's is, oh my God, like, oh, you like, you're a building painter, and you hate painting buildings, then you're in the wrong, job. So you gotta love it too. But yeah, your end goal is just to not stop until it works.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Creating some urgency so that you can make it happen for yourself and then pursue it full time.
Yeah.
Um, And at this point, Abe, I mean, you have millions of followers across your social media. You have millions of views, excuse me, millions of listens and streams and up for your music. But were there any early creative projects or songs that felt like a big breakthrough for you personally before everybody noticed what you were doing?
Yeah. Yeah. When I stopped, like, whenever I was a teenager, I was like making rap music, and and then like early 20s, I was like kind of transitioning into more like melodic rap music. But I think as soon as I did this, I had this phase where I was like kind of making like pop punk type music, and that's whenever I very first started kind of like talking about how I feel about stuff and like what my feelings are that day. And that when I started doing that, I that's whenever I thought like, oh. I'm evolving and I'm getting better. And like I started believing in myself way more. Like, oh man, this sounded great. And I started going to like a real studio instead of like just making it like on a laptop myself with my friend. I would like go to an actual like studio with a booth in it. You know, it wasn't the nicest, but I still was like going and taking that step. I think that's whenever I really kind of had that moment of like, oh man, I'm getting better, and like, you know, I can keep getting better, and if I keep getting better, like, you know, one day I'm gonna be good. And I'm still on the way though, man. It's not like I haven't like completed all my goals yet, you know. It's cool that things are kind of getting checked off. Like having a million monthly listeners is really cool. It's like a blessing, but it's not like the end goal, you know. The end goal is like much higher than that.
Of course, and actually, that's one of the reasons why I like talking to people that are around my age that are just starting their careers because it's so true. Like this is just the beginning for you. So it's
Mhm.
going to be exciting to see what comes next and what your new goals will be. You know, in a few years down the line.
For sure.
Um, yeah. And your single, I'd Rather Overdose, which is a banger, by the way. I've been jamming it.
Oh.
I've been listening to your music for weeks now. And after we once we arrange this interview, dude, it's so cool. Like, I feel one thing that I've noticed about your music is that it doesn't fall into a specific category. You know, like I can't say like, oh, this is rap or it's alternative. It really is its own unique sound. And you can
Thank you.
tell that you're super passionate about it. And now that you tell me that you wanted to be a storyteller or a writer, like that makes more sense because you really do take your listeners on a journey through your music. Fly Away has been like my song of the week, by the way.
Thank
So, yeah.
you.
Um, so I guess what I'm getting at is your single "I'd Rather Overdose" that has been one of your biggest hits, and it's had a major impact. What was the story behind writing that song?
Yeah, man. I tell the story a lot. The song really, you know, my dad had passed away from an overdose like a couple months before I wrote that song. He had been kind of going through a divorce, and me and him, he had been going through that divorce like for a little while, you know, like a couple years, and me and him had like connected on that, like on a lot of levels. He was like living with me for a long time and stuff like that. I had a long time girlfriend that I had broken up with, and I started like hanging out at his house more. And like we really kind of connected through like that heartbreak for a little while towards the end of his life. And I mean, that was my dog. Like we connected on every level, but you know, towards the end of his life, I'm like older and stuff. And yeah, man, I just kind of when when you're like sick like that, it's hard to get help. And my dad wouldn't get help, and he ended up dying of an overdose, like, you know, due to like his mental struggles and shit, man. And so I just kind of wrote that hook about that. You know, it's got a lot to do with my dad. It's kind of, you know, I'm speaking about myself. I'm kind of speaking for him too. You know, I'm just talking about, you know, being in a situation and losing somebody that you love and not wanting to be without them, you know, and kind of comes with like the struggles of addiction and stuff like that, talking about overdose and this and that, you know. But no, regardless, like what the story means to me, you know, the people really kind of took that song and made it an anthem for like people recovering and people realizing how, you know, much like addiction affects people and you know, a lot of like addicts and stuff like come forward and say like, yo, that song like helped me get sober for my kids, because like you can hear somebody's kid talking about like, yo, my, you know, this is what it's like after your dad dies from overdose. You know, and kind of telling that story. So that was a song I wrote in a really like low spot, but it turned out to be such a beautiful thing, man. Like just a cool story. And my story honestly is like subpar. Like a lot, what people make that song is like way bigger than what it ever could have been whenever I was like writing it, you know?
Well, I think that, well, first of all, I think that it's really cool that you poured your heart into that song when like you said, you were coming, it was a bad place at the time, but you were being vulnerable and still decided to do it. And I think it's important that you did because addiction really is a disease. It's not just something that you can choose to stop, like, or take a pill and
Yeah.
then it's fixed.
Yeah.
So it's unique and it is a disease, but it is unique in that there's no medicine that can cure it. And the cool thing about you singing about it and being so vocal about your story is that everybody deals with addiction in one form or another, whether it's something personal or maybe you have a friend or an aunt, an uncle, a parent, what have you. I feel like everybody deals with it, but not everybody talks about it. So getting to hear you talk about it so vocally and then also get to relate to that through your music
Yeah.
has been huge. How have you, can you tell us about maybe like the time that you first realized that your music really helped heal somebody through that journey?
Yeah. Man, I think every day really I like every it's a weird thing, man, because like after that song came out, like people just assume like there's a lot of different assumptions, some people assume that that's a song about me getting sober. Some people assume that that's a song about me having a drug addiction. I think that the every person that I meet is different, and the very first time that somebody came up to me and they were like, hey, I remember it was this girl where I'm from in Springfield, Missouri, and she came up to me and she was like just distraught. Like her face was like red. She was like crying. She was like shaking. And she was like, I wanted to meet you. I wanted to meet you. I have to tell you a story. And it was the first time that anybody had like ever came up to me like that. She like just told me the story about how her dad died of an overdose and how he struggled her whole life and he lived with her and all these things. And I think that was the first moment where I was like, oh, wait, like I grew up a lot like that. Like, wait, hang on, bro. I've heard that story, 100 times with my friends. Like, we've all went through that a million times. Like, I can't, like, no way. I can't believe you heard the song. Like, whoa, like, I can't believe it really means that much to you. I think that was my first moment of feeling like, whoa, I'm connecting with these people and like we're the same, and I'm finding like a place where a lot of these people are just like me. But I think every day is like that. Anybody that comes up to me, it's a blessing and a curse for people to come up to you and be like, "Hey, everybody in my family's dead. Like, thanks for your music." And it's like, like every day, that happens 100 times a day. If I go to the store, I might see somebody in the store and they're like, "Oh my God, your song." Everybody in my family's addicted to drugs. I know what it's like, and so to be that like person that they could see them in me, it's amazing because I see myself in them, and it's like it's a great exchange. But it's also it's like a heavy thing for every interaction with a fan or a stranger to be an interaction talking about, yo, I'd rather overdose, save me because this happened and that happened and all these. It's a beautiful thing, especially at shows, man. Will be 1,000 people in a room, and it feels like all these 1,000 people are there to like love, and they're there to like feel loved, and they want to, and they know that they're there to like heal a part of them, that these songs are going to heal a part of them, and to see them live. And same for me, it heals me every time I can sing a song to somebody that relates. um but it's also like kind of a sad thing, man, and it really kind of sucks that this stuff has been swept under the rug for so long that like I never even, whenever I was a kid growing up, I thought I was like the only one. Had I been a kid growing up and known that, oh yeah, man, even these people in offices and suits and ties and they're hopping in Bentleys and they're got jumping in Mercedes and their kids are, they're all going out to eat with their kids and all those people even deal with it. I grew up in a town where like if it seemed like you were on drugs or if you even like smoked weed or did these things and people would like push you away and be like they would shove you away. So had I grown up as a kid knowing that like everybody deals with it like this, it probably would have been a lot different.
And Abe, I never really considered that people coming up to you and telling you their stories, especially, around a very heavy topic. I didn't really think about how that could negatively impact you, hearing it over and over and over again. What do
every
you
day.
do? Yeah, I mean, that's crazy. I didn't think about that. What do you do to protect your energy?
Oh my God, I don't. Send me an idea. I don't know, man. I'm drained all the time. It's like sometimes it really like it's sad, bro, and it sucks sometimes. And I always have a heavy heart nowadays, and like it's things make me cry so easy now because I'm always talking about bad shit. I'm always hearing about bad shit. I get on these podcasts and I talk about my dad dying every day. I like I'm trying to learn how to be like a stronger person because I know that people need to hear this from me, and I got like a story that helps people, and I'm trying to like learn how to be stronger for that. But like right now, bro, like I don't know, man. I'm drained sometimes. I'm sad a lot of the time. I'm like, things make me mad. Like you're not mad, but I quickly get overwhelmed. Like, but I'm trying to learn how to deal with that. So I don't really have the answers now, bro. And I tell everybody that in my shows all the time too. I tell them on stage. I'm not a dude with the answers yet. You know, a lot of people hear overdose and they think, yo, like this guy, like I'm gonna go ask him how to get sober. And it's like, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to, I'm not sure how to protect my energy yet. I'm not sure how to, I don't know how to deal with, having this life where, I'm finally kind of starting to make like a step in life, like as a human, not as a musician and stuff, but just like as a human being, I'm starting to grow up and I'm starting to make like a step in life, and everywhere I go is a story that reminds me that this is who I am and this is where I came from, and I could be in the nicest of apartment, in the perfect area, but as soon as I walk outside, I get quickly reminded that this is actually like what I am, and I'm glad to be that, but I'm just a 27-year-old kid that hasn't figured it out yet, and I'm trying to figure it out. Like one day I'm gonna be able to be like, oh, this is what I do. I put hot rocks on my forehead and like take cold showers. But like right now, bro, I don't know, man.
No, but you know what? This is a really great thing to talk about. And I'll say this too, Abe. I think what comes through more from your music isn't the heaviness and the sad story that some of it is surrounding. What comes through for me more than anything, like I said, like my song of the week has been Fly Away. Vibes, man. Like it's just like
Thank
it's a
you.
good vibe. All of your
Thank
music,
you.
even like even the songs that do touch on heavy topics, there's like a positivity, like a lightness that comes through. So I feel like that's gonna be what I feel like that's why people gravitate to your music, not because it makes them sad. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I feel like more than anything, it's that positive vibe, which actually I wanted to ask you about. Um, you do talk about a lot of heavy topics, but I do feel like in your music and in your interviews, you do come across as very lighthearted and like positive. What is it about you that you're able to like be that way? Like what makes you so positive?
Um, well, I just like telling jokes. I don't know. And like things, I grew up in like a really household that was like funny, like everybody's mad funny, but like, you know, it was just a little, it was like stressful and stuff. And like, I just think that like a lot of stuff you got to let it roll off your shoulders. I don't know, like I also am a dude. I strictly like move off of how I feel, and how I would feel. And like if a little kid were to come in here right now, I immediately think about when I was a little kid and how would I have wanted an adult to treat me when I was a little kid. And like that's what I think. And so I think at the same time, like when we're in an interview or you're allowing me to be on this podcast and you're asking me questions, I just think like you know, I want you to like enjoy my company. I want you to feel comfortable around me. I don't want you to feel like I'm putting you in some type of situation where you don't feel like at your best. And if I was sitting here and I was like letting the sad or the bad things like eat me up, then you would be uncomfortable or you would be feeling bad. And I just think that like that's a blessing and a curse. Like I kind of mess myself up in the head a lot of the time, worried about like how other people feel, but that's just kind of how it is. And I also just like there's a time and a place to be. If I didn't make music, if I wasn't making music, then all of my feelings and my emotions would go into like a book, and they would stay there, and nobody would ever hear them. and that would be, and I would still be fine, and I would still have a release, and I would still, but it just so happens that I make music, and so whenever I'm doing my writing and I'm journaling and stuff like that, and I record it, and my healing process is different, and I make music now, so now we talk about it after, but and so I'm open to have these conversations, and like people are hearing it, and we're like discussing, how it makes each other feel and stuff like that, but it's still just my release. It's not like my entire personality. It's but the other thing is too is that I think it's important. Like I mean, I talk about it, bro. Like there's I feel so strongly like in all categories. Like if I were to feel sad right now, I would be just the saddest dude. Like if I were to feel happy right now, I would. You would just see how happy I am. I would just, you would be feeling. If I was angry or upset, you would see. I would just be distraught. I would be crying and mad. Like all those things. Whenever I just feel something, I just feel it so intensely. So when the sad feelings come on, it's just like, okay, I don't want to put them on anybody. I want everybody to get the version of Abe that, is like lighthearted and like, tells jokes and wants to be here. Like, but whenever I get sad, it's just another story. So I just, I think I just feel for other people more. So I never really want to like put bad vibes on somebody else.
Well, I can totally relate to that being an empath, like feeling other people's energy. Because like if somebody walks in the room and they're upset, I can feel it immediately. And you're right. It is a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing
Yeah.
because you're sensitive to people's feelings and because of depending on how they're acting, you're going to kind of change the way that you're acting so that they get good vibes from you. Um,
Right.
but I think it really is all about setting boundaries because I remember I'm also like you, like I want to be a people pleaser. I want everyone to feel good, even at my own expense sometimes. And I remember one time somebody said to me, Alexander, if you're not putting yourself first, that is the most selfish thing you can do. And I kind of thought, what? Like, what do you mean? And then they said, if you're not putting yourself first, your pitcher is not going to be full. So how can you fill everybody else's cups? Like you have to be okay first. So I think that it's all about setting boundaries and kind of and not living in that space or not that you don't want to care, but you do have to kind of like put up a wall maybe.
Yeah, no doubt. Appreciate you.
And I want to talk about hara-kiri, which has already been a huge success. How did you approach creating the EP and how has this been different from everything else that you've done?
Yeah, thanks for calling it a huge success.
It has been.
Thanks. Yeah, dude. I don't know. Yeah, it's like different. So Harakiri kind of came. I was making music for so long and nobody was hearing it, like so long. And then Overdose, and I had never released a project before. And Overdose, when Overdose came out and people started listening to it, it was just kind of like it put me in this mode, dude. Like I had never felt so motivated before ever. And I like I met my people in Miami, and I found a studio down here that I love, and an engineer that I love, and they put me in a house, and I just kind of locked in, and I really locked in for a couple of months, and I made probably 80 songs that I like. I probably picked 80 songs that I liked, and then I just we just kind of like over time just went down and down and down to try to pick 10 songs that were my favorite songs, and that really kind of described me and like where I am in life and where I was before Overdose, and before like all these changes started happening. And so Harakiri, the album was kind of just like a culmination of like who I was and what I'm starting to become, and the dreams that I have as a person, and the things that have pushed me to get there so far in my life, and the loss that I've had, and the things that I've dealt with. Um and then yeah, and there's a deluxe coming out, and I think the deluxe is the other side of that. It's like it's the other side of that. It's like, okay, well, life is starting to change, and I'm starting to kind of know who I am like as a human and what I was on this earth to made to do, and I'm starting to connect with these people, and so yeah, it's just kind of like it's like a timestamp, man. Really, it's like a timestamp. When I think of Harakiri, it looks like a line to me. It looks like there's a dot right here that says like 2023, and then 2024, and then 2020, and it's just that. Like it's just telling you what has happened in that time to me, and the situations I've been in, and the emotions I've been feeling. And yeah, man, it's just kind of like that. I think my music will probably always be like that because it's hard for me to like write a record that isn't in some way like personal to like the things that I've been feeling. And it doesn't always have to be sad though. Sometimes it's cool. Fly Away is cool. It's not that sad. I do say I want to die today, but it's still cool though. Like it's all good. So
And what song from Hara-kiri feels most personal to you and why?
personal, personal experience, or like the one that I like put on personally the most.
I think the one that you put on personally the most, that you just vibe with the most, I guess.
Yeah, okay. Let me think. I like them all. Like they're all super. It's hard. I really don't. I make so much music like in my day-to-day life that I don't hardly go back a lot, but I remember whenever I made Harakiri Fly Away, I loved it, right? Like that was the first record that I made where I was like, hang on, wait. Like this is next level. Like this is I love this song. But I think Demons and Nightmares, the beginning track, that's a song where um that song means a lot to me. It puts me in a really cool vibe. And a place where I'm really kind of feeling like I remember where I was when I recorded that. I made that in my living room, and I remember like everything about that night. I think it puts me in a really cool place. Um, if I had to just like say one, if you were on the street, gun to my head, and you said pick a song, I would probably say Fly Away.
Cool. And I'm happy about that answer because it's coming from a biased perspective, because that's my favorite one right now too. So
Word.
that's cool.
Yeah, appreciate it. Word. Thank you so much.
And Ave, so you've experienced, garnering a large audience over the last few years. How do you stay connected to your authentic voice as your audience is growing? Do you feel like there are pressures, or do you feel like you approach it differently, or is it the same, or what's been your experience with that?
I like so. Yeah, I'm like I kind of feel like sometimes I'm crazy. Um, there's like I do feel a little bit of pressure to like be. I don't feel pressure in my music. So of course I want like a number one hit, but I don't feel pressure like to make any certain type of music or my voice. Like I'm kind of so headstrong and like a little crazy that like I maybe don't care enough like to think that oh well, so and so commented this on my video and said that I should sound like this, or if somebody says like, oh, you're changing or you're doing this or that, or a lot of people will say, I do acoustics a lot. There's a lot of acoustics in my tracks, but then every once in a while there's gonna be, if I release 10 songs, six of them might be acoustic and four of them and three of them might be rock and roll and one of them might be hip hop. And because that's just who I am as a human being, all of that into one is who I am as a human. And so I kind of like I don't necessarily feel any pressure to like sound different or write different or do different things because like this is what I do. This is my music. I love my music. I make my music for me and the people that are like me. And I don't make it for rooms full of people with a suit and ties on that are telling me I need to sound like this to get on the radio. And I don't make it for people that, you know, sit behind a cell phone screen and judge other people. Like I just don't make it for them. So those are the type of people that make you feel pressure on yourself. Those are the type of people like if we're talking about TikTok or if we're talking about Instagram, I feel pressure there. I feel pressure to like, oh man, if I post something and like people don't fuck with it, I feel pressure there because that's not my passion. Instagram and TikTok is not my passion. If I could never use social media, I would never use it. But I feel pressure there because that's kind of, how you get people to know who you are and that's how people get to experience like what you're doing and stuff like that. And so I feel pressure there. But in my music, I don't feel pressure, man. I love making music. You could, as long as I got a voice and I got a brain, I'm gonna be making music. You could love it, you could hate it, you could listen to it, you could not listen to it. It has nothing to do with anybody but me. I get really, really, really upset like when people try to like make me sound a certain way. I turned down millions of dollars for people that were trying to tell me I'm gonna make you into Post Malone. And I was, I was a kid that had no money and had never seen money in my life, and I had never, and I turned down millions of dollars because people were trying to tell me that, hey, we're gonna do this with your sound. And it's like, no, 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 no. I don't make music for you, bro. I don't make music for them, bro. If you want to facilitate me and you want to, help me out and you want to help me get to a goal and you want to, eat when I eat and stuff like that, yeah, sure, we'll do something like that. But there's no way I would take millions of dollars to turn into Post Malone tomorrow. If you could, there's just no, I'm too headstrong. I love what I do too much. I'm too invested in myself. Music like makes me is the only reason why I'm like still here, man. Like it's not a joke. Whenever people might, I've been in studios where people are be like, "Hey, let's make a song that sounds like this. It's cool when you sound sad, bro. Sound sad and say this." And like, I'm like, I'm like, like no way you're trying to make a cool, edgy, sad song. Like if you ever heard one of my songs, you thought it was a cool, edgy, sad song. Thanks. But like that's just because what was going on felt like that. That's not because I got in the studio and thought, oh man, I'm gonna try to do what they want me to do today. I'll never do that, bro. Like I just and so I don't feel pressure to, but I do feel pressure outside of music to live up to some person that these people think that I'm gonna be.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of like circling back to you having a very unique and authentic sound. I feel like if you sell out, then you lose the people that started with you at the beginning of your journey. And then trying to go into the studio and have this like really contrived situation where it's like let's try to sound sad and edgy goes
Yeah,
against like that yeah, like
can't do
it
that.
goes no, it goes against the art. And actually, um, when you wrote I'd Rather Overdose, I know that there's actually a really cool story about that, how you actually didn't even want to record the song, right? It was kind of an
Yeah,
accident.
would have never recorded it. Yeah, yeah. My like I'm writing the song and I'm just crying. Yeah, my friend calls me Z, my best friend at the time. He's the feature on that song. He calls me and he's in the studio and he just told me to write it and he was like, do that stuff you were writing, man, and invited me over. And yeah, so that was a song that was especially a time where like there's songs in my phone that I recorded around that time that I still haven't released that have the same vibe that I'm talking about the same thing and they haven't got released and they might not ever get released. I could have dropped after Overdose, I could have dropped 5 or 10 songs that sound just like Overdose, that sound super similar and that talk about super similar things. And I could have easily just tried to juice Overdose to just, make me into some like guy that does this all the time. But it's just, yeah, that's just not the route. So I don't believe like I don't I don't always nowadays I definitely put out the things that I feel more strongly towards. Nowadays I definitely feel way more comfortable talking about my feelings. I feel way more comfortable singing about them and putting them out. But back then I did not release stuff like that. And yeah, that was like a freak thing that happened. And I feel like it's always like that. It's always a freak thing whenever, something just drastically changes your life forever. It always seems like some crazy thing that would have never happened had the stars not perfectly aligned.
For sure. And I think it's really cool that you don't feel pressure even now as your career is taking off when you're making music because, back to that pressure on social media, you're not alone in that. That's a huge thing.
Yeah, I actually there's a song on the album called Pressure, and it's about like the pressure of social media and stuff, and kind of being like, it's also funny, man. Like you get like people think when you don't have a million followers, like you just assume that it like and I don't mean this cliche, but you just assume that it like means something. Like it's so lame, dude. Like I'm a
Mhm.
victim of it too. Like I'm a victim of it too, bro. Like don't even get me wrong. To this day, like there's times where I wish I had more followers and I'll post something and I'm like, ah damn, people don't mess with me. But it's like, dude, like I meet these people, man, and they're famous and they're just all you see them on billboards and you might be driving down the highway and you hear their songs and it's like you meet them and it's like the fuck this dude is so lame. Like I wouldn't hang out with this dude for nothing if he wasn't on a gigantic billboard. You know what I mean? You like I think that those things and those relationships that I probably should have built or could have built in situations where, I'm in a room of people who could take me there and could but it's just like, man, bro, like the followers and stuff like that, dude, it just doesn't mean as much as you think it means. It's a really cool starting space. It's a really cool way to start making money, and not have to have a boss. It's a super cool way to express yourself and all those things. But like the amount of weight that we have put on like having followers is crazy. The biggest bosses I know don't have Instagram. The biggest boss I've ever met in my life, if you post him on Instagram, he's like, take that down. You know what I'm saying? We're just fooled as 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds. We're just fooled into thinking that that is what it's about. And like I'm still to this day, I might leave this being like, ah, dang, wish, I hope 2 billion people see that. You know what I'm saying? Oh man, like everybody's a victim to it, but like at the end of the day, man, it's just really not that important.
Well, I mean, I think that there's like a healthy balance between, you obviously you want people to see your stuff, you want to get the views, the likes, because you want to feel like you're impacting other people. And also, let's face it, in entertainment, you have to if to have the career, you have to have that. Yeah, that's a big part of it. But there's a
Mhm.
difference between I live in Los Angeles, and every single time I go to one of the hip restaurants, when you walk in, everybody turns their head and see if you're famous or not. And if you're not, they just kind of turn back and do what they're doing. It's like when you're so consumed by it to where like you can't even function in your normal life, like have dinner without looking around the room to see who's there. That's when it's a problem, I feel.
Absolutely, yeah. It could be, yeah, yeah. There's so many levels of problems that where I'm from, bro. Like that, I experience that stuff now. I might go to a super nice restaurant now. I might, we might have a situation where you're eating dinner in a place where there's other famous people and stuff like that. But bro, where I'm from, that's not even a thing. You don't even know about that, bro. You don't even L.A., Los Angeles, where in Pure City, Missouri, where I come from, bro. I nobody had ever been to LA. None of my friends, none of their family, nobody. We never even seen it. You only see it on movies. You don't even realize that there's people going to restaurants that are normal that have regular office jobs to meet people, or there's people walking the street that might not be like we thought LA was like only famous people, right? Like it's such a crazy concept for me to like idolize a lifestyle like that because it was never even a question where I'm from. I have a bad like habit of like, like I'm not really great with money because where I come from, like money was like if you had like you were trying to get $200 a week. Like my parents' bills were like our rent was like $400 a week. We had a 4-bedroom house. Like that's at $400 in LA. Where the fuck is that gonna get you? Like we couldn't even understand that culture growing up. So yeah, so nowadays seeing that is so crazy, man. It's like it's just so the world is so much different, and just even in America, there's so many different parts that it's so different. The cultures are so different. It's just crazy to think about.
Yeah, and it's refreshing to hear you. It's refreshing to hear you say that. Being in the music industry, to hear you say like, oh, you said it best. You're like, it's so lame. It really is. When you get come up in that space, it's boring.
Yeah.
Um, so when you are creating music, do you ever have moments where you experience creative blocks? And if you do, how do you overcome them?
I heard this quote one time that said, to write, you have to experience. And so, like, I do go through writer's block and stuff. I do go through moments where I'm not feeling creative or I feel like I'm creating the same song just in different ways. Um, but whenever that happens, I just got to take a couple weeks of experiencing stuff and hanging out and going through family stuff. And I'll go like, this last couple of weeks, I haven't been making music. I just kind of got back into the studio a week ago, but before that, for like 3 weeks, I hadn't really been recording. And I went home and I experienced things with my friends, and I went and I watched my nephews play baseball and hung out with my family, and I did these things where just kind of got back grounded into it, and then I've been in the studio every day for 10 hours a day for the last 6 days creating songs that I really like, and I just feel like I had to go experience stuff. And that could be you can get experience or you can get motivation from like anything though. There's times where I'll feel like not now, but like whenever I was coming up, whenever I had got TikTok followers before people were listening to my music, but I had been making music the whole time. And there was times where I would feel, I could feel myself feeling like, I don't know if it's like high or whatever you want to call it, but just feeling some type of way about like having, getting followers and shit. And, and so I would like kind of go and like read comments and like read some bad comments and like knock myself down a few, and that would give me motivation to be like, okay, I'm gonna write about, oh, you feel like this about me? Oh, you hate the way I look. Oh, you hate the way that I talk, like, or whatever, or oh man, you're not supporting me, like you don't listen to my music, and I would find motivation in that. But I think really it's just all about experience and what you're experiencing and kind of like what you're going through, and it could be good or bad, you know, like we talking about Sexy Red, she raps about, Corvettes and Scat Packs and being in St. Louis. And I'm sure that she had to ride in a Scat Pack and a Corvette and be in St. Louis before she wrote that rhyme. You just got to experience stuff.
That's the best advice that I've been given in like months because I totally agree with that. Like, in order to write or create, you have to experience things. And the thing is that I feel like our society, especially in the United States, we have this mentality where we're like, we have to produce, 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 produce. And that feels really overwhelming. And then you feel drained and exhausted. But you're right. In order to get like new content or a fresh perspective, you have to unplug and just live a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
And what have you learned about yourself through the process of writing and performing your songs?
I've never been alone my whole life. That's the very first thing that I think of whenever I think, what has all this taught me? I've never been alone. So I have to be alone sometimes now, and it sucks. I've also learned that I'm starting to believe in myself more, man. Like writing is like my passion and stuff. And I think it's like opened doors for me that like I never knew it was gonna open, and it's put me in rooms that I never thought it would put me in. So it's really kind of given me like a new like belief in myself. Um. I just think that I'm before all of this started happening and I started getting like, recognized for my writing and stuff, in my songs, I was like I couldn't hold a job down. Like I thought I was like a loser. Like I thought I was always gonna be a loser. I couldn't hold a job down. I hated working anywhere. I hated getting up in the morning and going to do things. And I just found out that I'm actually super passionate and I'm actually a really hardworking dude. I just have to be comfortable and I just have to be, I have to believe in whatever I'm working towards. And it doesn't, that's not just music, just anything in general. And I think like before all of this, I was under the assumption that I sucked. Like I thought that I sucked. Like as an adult, I thought I was like a man who didn't like to work. Imagine, I mean, people know what it's like if you're a man, especially where I'm from, bro. People are working like on the railroad and they're like welders and they got farms. And so, if I'm hanging out with my buddies, they all got boots on and they got welders in their truck and they're talking about work. And I'm like, my hands are clean and I'm like wearing like baggy pants and Jordans, and I have a gold bracelet on, and I'm feeling like, oh, I'm different, and and I'm like, I don't like working. I'm a loser. Like I must be like a crackhead or something. I must be some dude that can't get his life together. But really, bro, I just am passionate, and I'm passionate about the things that I do, and I finally found an area where I can like thrive being passionate about something and like really giving it everything I got. And I was never actually a loser. I was just in the wrong room all the time.
I actually really love that. That's a really good point because we really don't know what we're capable of until we try something. And I feel like in your early stages of life, especially early 20s, when you're just kind of starting off in your career, you don't have much experience and you start to realize, all right, I'm a kid, but not really. I have to start paying my bills and making a living.
Yeah.
You start to get a little overwhelmed. You're like, do I have what it takes?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think honestly, like, dude, yeah, it's overwhelming. It's super overwhelming. There's a, there's, I was like, my parents made me move out right when I was 18. So like, right from the jump, I had to figure it out. My dad used to always be like, the best way to learn how to swim is to jump in the pool. And so it's like, yeah, man, you just gotta do it. Just gotta do it and try it out. And like, if I could tell like that kid that thought that I was like a loser because I didn't like to have a job, like I couldn't hold a job down. If I would have told him like, no, man, find what you're passionate about and then get up every day and do it. It's cliche, but if you love it, it's not a job. I think that would have been like monumental for me.
And if to somebody who's listening or watching this, if they're scared to start sharing their art with the world, what would you tell them?
Who's asking it? Is it a kid or is it somebody my age?
Either way.
If it was a kid, I would say, insecurity, it comes from a place of not loving yourself enough. And I would say if you really believe in yourself and you really love what you're doing, then it's important to put your art out. And I would say if you are a kid and you don't know if you love it super hard yet, and you're not willing to take all the things that come with putting your art on the internet, there's gonna be good things, there's gonna be bad things. I would say wait until you're super passionate and you believe, okay, this is what I want to do, and then go head strong into it. If you're 27 like me and you got an art that you're passionate about, I feel like you would know by now. And I would say, scared money don't make no money, boy. And I would say, post your shit. I would say, post it, man. Post it. I would say, F whatever anybody thinks, man. If you love it, dude, do it. Just do it. That's what I would say to him. If it was a kid, I would be like, hey, man, like, yeah, you gotta love yourself first and make sure that you are really enjoy what you're doing.
That's gonna be the quote for this interview. Scared money don't make no money.
Straight up.
And Ave, looking back at everything you've built to now, what would you say the single most important decision you ever made was?
Wow. Wow. So like a legitimate answer, um, a legitimate answer, the single most important decision I ever made is like makes me sick to my stomach. Is like leaving the lifestyle that I was living for like a long time after high school, and I used to really feel like I had to prove a lot to people, and I was hanging out with the wrong people, and I was with people that weren't making me happy, and leaving them as a 22-year-old and starting to go live with different friends and live a different life was the most important decision I've ever made as a human being in general. Realizing that I didn't fit in and I wasn't a gangster and I wasn't gonna I wasn't a dude that hurts people and this person I was trying to portray to be like this rapper guy. I think that was the most important decision I ever made. In the music industry, the most important like decision I've ever made is teaming up with the guys I'm teamed up now. Um, and like kind of opening my ears to hearing and to taking advice and being more, you know, like accepting more advice more. I think that was an important decision. That was hard for me at first to talk to somebody and to hear somebody be like, "Hey man, what if you tried this?" And to hear somebody say, "Hey man, like it's important for you to post, this post so that, people can know this thing about you." And I think as soon as I started like taking advice, that was a pretty important pivot in my music career.
And Ave, what's next in your career and what do you have coming up? What are you working on?
Yeah, bro. Hara-kiri Deluxe drops on the 16th of May. That's gonna be so sick. It's 10 more songs that I love. I think they're better than the first 10. Super excited. I'm on tour right now. Um, 40 shows. There 37 of them are sold out, I think. Um, you could just Google that. I don't know, man. What's next for me, man? Like I'm just gonna keep on making music and experiencing shit and keep on experiencing it and making more music. And try to like stay alive, you know?
Totally. And what's the best way for people to keep up with you and your career and what you have going on?
The Ellen DeGeneres show. I'll be there on twice a week, every month. No, I'm just playing. Man, just Instagram, bro. Honest Dave. I don't know, man. Yeah, TikTok, Instagram. You can hit me on LinkedIn. I'm making a LinkedIn account. Y'all can hit me on LinkedIn.
All right, well, you're hearing it here first, and I'll hit you up on LinkedIn.
No doubt.
And what is the biggest lesson you've learned so far?
In life or in music?
Both.
The biggest lesson I learned so far is that you got to talk to people. You have to talk to people. When my brother passed away with suicide, it taught me a lesson that I'll never forget. And you also gotta be compassionate for how other people feel. And it doesn't matter it doesn't matter how you feel about a situation. If somebody else feels super strongly about it, you gotta be passionate and try to see things their way. I think that's the biggest life lesson that I've ever learned in my life.
And a last question. If you could go back in time and offer your younger self one bit of advice right before you embarked on this journey, but specifically tailored to you, what would it be?
Um, I think specific. Okay, yeah, I would just tell him. I don't know if I would give him advice because I really feel like for me specifically, I had to like it had to happen exactly. That was the only possible way. Was making so many mistakes and continuing to push forward. I would tell him don't stop. I would just tell him don't stop. Bro, look, man, if and I don't care who you are or what you're doing, bro, right now, I was 15 when I started like releasing music. Hey, bro, at 15 years old, in 10 years, you're 25. You're still a baby in the room. You're still the youngest dude in the room most of the time at 25, whenever you go to like, big places. So in 10 years, bro, you can put in 10,000 hours, right? So 10 years, you'll be 25. 10 more years from that, bro, you're 35. I hang out with 35-year-olds right now. These dudes hang out just like a 25-year-old. These dudes, except they got money and cars and a wife. And it's like they're exactly like 25-year-olds, but they got cars and money and a wife. So that's what 20 years from where you could have started. So I would just say start, bro, and don't stop. I would just say start and don't stop, bro. And every single time you feel like, oh fuck, like I might not be able to do it, just try it again tomorrow. All right. You don't feel like trying it again tomorrow, give it a week and try it again next week. Just don't put it down. If once you pick it up, just do not put it back down, is what I would tell him.
Well, Ave, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. This was amazing. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was fun. Appreciate y'all.